topic that every single landscape um, does. Every single landscape. Oh, sorry, I'm going to start that over. Um, Welcome to Synced on Air. I'm your host, Angelique Robb. And today we're tackling a topic that affects every single landscape, whether you're designing it, building it, or maintaining it. It's irrigation. Irrigation is a huge topic that has an effect in all parts of the landscape. And most of us know that water is our most precious resource, but even the most experienced landscape professionals are leaving serious problems in the ground, the wrong heads, the wrong pressure, the wrong schedules, and often they don't know until a client calls with dead plants or a sky high water bill. I've brought in someone who has spent his entire career solving these exact problems. He's worked with Rainbird, Jane Irrigation, Husqvarna Water, and Valley Crest. He's the author of Waterwise Gardening and publishes the H2O Trends newsletter on Substack. With 25 years in the water efficiency space, he is genuinely one of the most knowledgeable people in irrigation today. Please welcome Richard Restuccio. Restuccia. Sorry, Richard,
No,
I messed that up.
you had it right both ways somehow.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for that very kind and generous introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here. You know, I've seen a lot of your work and am happy to be able to contribute to it now because you've had just such great guests. That's for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, and let's start with a little bit more on your water efficiency background. With this slide, it shows everybody what you've done, but what have you really learned in that time that is critical to our industry professionals?
Yeah, so I guess the main thing I've really learned over the years is that irrigation's a really complex subject, right? I've got a master's in agriculture. It's got a focus of irrigation, and it comes from the College of Engineering and Applied Science. But people don't get the engineering side of irrigation. In fact, I got made fun of many years ago because people would just say, "Come on, Richard, water goes in one end and comes out another. How hard can it be?" And it's much more difficult than that. And as a result, I've found that education becomes so much more important. And even, I do master gardener training. My book's going to be the textbook for master gardeners in Southern California next year.
Fantastic.
But what I find is that it is this education, whether it's master gardeners, whether it's contractors, even specifiers, right? If you go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is one of the premier colleges you can go to for either architecture, landscape architecture, or irrigation, you maybe get a semester of irrigation during that time in your
Mm.
education, right? 5-year program, a semester of irrigation. So I've just found that people don't underestimate the complexity and the engineering needed to do this correctly, and as a result, um, they need more education always, right? And doesn't everybody? Don't we always want to be learning? And as
Yeah.
technology grows, so that's not a that's more of a it's not a compliment, but it's not a put down. It is just saying this is what everyone needs to grow with is more education.
Well, and I think you and I talked about this before, but we had Daniel Smith on from Park West.
Yeah.
I think it was last year, and you know what I liked about I think he was head of irrigation for Park West, and he said how what he came to realize is a lot of the issues are are so much more than that. It's about the right plant in the right place, but then it's more it there take it takes a lot more planning and a lot more design work to get it done right from the start. Sometimes I wonder if we underestimate that too, the front end part.
Look, this is one thing I really want to talk about today, right? Because what we see is, uh, why is it that these irrigation problems persist? And by the way, you mentioned Danny Smith. What a great guy. And right away, as soon as you say his name, I know exactly who you're talking about. Right, he's well known in the industry
Yes.
for many reasons. But yeah, so. Why do these problems occur? Why do they persist? And I think that one thing that we all need to remember is the environment in which we work. Right, irrigation is not easy from the standpoint of I always joke and I say, take your cell phone, strap it to a stick, put it in your front yard, and come back in a year and see if it still works. And then if it does, make it a little harder, bury it in the soil,
Yeah.
put water on it every other day, and come back in a year and see if it works. Um, so it's unfair using electronic, but it makes my point, I think. So
Yeah.
so that's one issue, and then two, our industry is still stuck on low bid, and
Oh,
um,
yes.
and
Yes.
that that kills your quality. But people are thinking, in the most part, especially in the past, water's cheap, it's plentiful. I don't care if I waste it, and that's changing. But it's funny. Back when I was at Valley Crest, we were doing a lot of controller installs in the Northeast, up in the Boston area. And I thought, why in the world are we doing so much work in Boston, right? Smart controllers in Boston. Maybe it's a 4 month market. So I went up there to find out, and I started talking to some of the property owners, property managers. And one thing I learned is that they said, listen, our buildings here are designed to last for hundreds of years. We want to have the best buildings. We want to have the highest quality irrigation. We want to have things that are going to last. They were set on excellence. Whereas in other parts of the country, I
Hmm.
think we're more. I certainly, when the housing boom was happening in the Southwest, it was get them up as quickly as possible. If you were a landscape contractor and you weren't doing 30 homes in a day, you were behind everybody else. So I think it's that excellence and that quality, and certain property managers, certain owners have it, and some don't.
Hmm. Well, and I think that's a great point. I think that if you're a business owner that wants to encourage longevity, and high-end products and quality work, you have to sell that to your clientele. You have to show them the difference that it makes. And, um, you know, one of the reasons why, we talk about design, build, maintain
Hmm.
is often because a lot of people design and build, or a lot of people build, and a lot of people maintain. But if we're going to talk about quality and doing things well, and that removes the low bid because you can't do things well and do it cheaply, um, you have to actually, talk to clients, whether it's homeowners, building owners, whatever, about the the maintenance costs, even if you're not going to be the one maintaining it. And that in itself should always prove that you need more time in design and in build. Um, and I guess that your point about in did you say in Boston or in the Northeast, that they had that mindset already, and so you didn't have to convince them. They had that mindset. I do feel like there's a lot of places that we have to, as the business owners doing the work, we have to promote that a bit harder.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for company owners, I think this is really important as well because, and you mentioned that design, build, maintain, and oftentimes the person designing it is different than the person who's building it, who's different from the person who's maintaining it. So that becomes a challenge. But we do have some that do all three,
Yeah.
and I think that these owners really need to establish the quality and excellence in water management, and they can really differentiate their companies from the others. And we did this at Valley Crest. 15 years ago, we started doing this at Valley Crest, and we saw our revenues just skyrocket. We were going through the Great Recession, and our business was growing like crazy because we were selling water management services. We were not worried about the mow and blow maintenance contract on a monthly basis. We got right down to, you're using X amount of water. We're going to implement these practices. And as a result, you're going to save X in water, which took the mow and blow maintenance bid completely out, right? Because they were going to
Mhm.
save. And look, these weren't pie in the sky promises. We had actual ways that we could estimate how much water we were going to save, and we could convert that to dollars. And we had lots of case studies to prove it. And so, if you're a landscape maintenance contractor or a design build contractor, these are the things you need, right? There's two things that are always happening when you're talking to customers. Two things that are happening right now as I talk on this cast. One is the audience is asking, "So what?" Right? Why should I be listening to you? Why should I be spending my precious time? And hopefully we've answered the so what, right? Because we're going to show you how to help your customers, help your business, and save water. And then the next question they're going to ask is, prove it. And so this is where your case studies become so important, that you actually show, look, and it doesn't take that long to show a case study. You know, people say, oh, it takes 3 years to build a good case study. You can build it in a year. You can also, one thing that we did that was very helpful, I think, to a lot of people, is we didn't build our case study after the fact. We said, we are starting work on this property. We expect to save this amount because this is what we're doing. And then we would follow up with
Oh,
a 3 month or 6 month. This is how we're doing. And boy, it
yes.
was really engaging to the people that were watching that.
Do you think talked about the value of water, because obviously some states are more water conscious than others. Um, do you think, and sorry, I know you have the slide about
Oh,
irrigation problems, but kind of generally, I wonder if people understand the um, the value of water and our part in that as the landscape industry, how we can help the issues with running out of fresh water across the U.S. Um, do you think it's understood enough?
um, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Um, every time in the past month that I turned my water faucet on, water came out. and
Yeah.
and I got that water for a penny a gallon delivered to my kitchen sink, delivered to my garden. I mean, that's incredible. It is taken for granted. People don't realize that there's other people around the world that don't get on-demand water, right? Saudi Arabia doesn't have 24-hour on-demand water, and we think of that as a very forward, rich country. So I think that's a challenge for some people. The other thing that's interesting is with our water pricing, right? Some places
Mhm.
people will say, and I agree with them, water is scarce in Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas, Nevada. But the price of water there compared to Boston, San Diego, Seattle is maybe 25% of what those other cities are paying. So it's confusing because even in places where water is scarce, we might have low pricing. And
Okay.
so this is all part of what is drummed up in water, what makes it completely fascinating to me. But this is what the challenge is with water: is the price you pay and the availability is so different from place to place. And I will say one of the reasons why Arizona and Las Vegas have less expensive water is they do so much with recycled water, and
Mm.
that's really the key for them. They invested in that years ago, and that's working for them and keeping prices down.
Well, and maybe because they became aware of it, they did something about it. Um, I don't. Yeah, they're kind of the states with great examples for the rest of us, but I don't see the other states really making that many moves to adopt. Um, you know, the same tactics.
Yeah.
So,
So right, because what we see the other states instead of going recycled, there, but and let me talk about that a little bit. But instead of going recycled, they just and it has been the most effective way to get people to conserve water is to raise prices. Here in San Diego, where I live, we're looking at almost 100% increase over the last 10 years, and we are expecting another 63% increase over the next 4 years. Right, that's already been legislated in. So they're trying to curb water use with higher prices, and they've actually been very successful. Right, we're using less water
okay.
today than we did 20 years ago, and
Wow,
we have a few million more people. So it's working.
that is
We're going
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing recycled water very soon. And in fact, San Diego made the announcement a few weeks ago that they're actually reselling water to some of the other water agencies in Southern California who haven't done as good a job as we have.
Okay. Okay.
But I take no credit for that. I mean, this is the policies.
Oh, well, back to landscape professionals,
Uh,
and there are you know four, you've highlighted four problems. What, yeah, do you want to delve into those and what we can do about them?
Yeah, I think so, right? So, some of the issues I see, and right, we have issues that happen in the design, and we have issues that happen in the field, and it's again, nobody's trying to make these mistakes. A lot of it's just education issues, and it's funny, I've got six on here that are common, but the one I've seen most recently, I've been out doing a lot of audits the
Okay.
past few weeks, and the one I'm seeing a lot of, and it's a more common than I expected, is too many heads on a zone. And people think, gee, I'm not getting enough water there, right? And maybe it was installed correctly, but they say, I'm starting to get a brown spot or something's going on. I better add another head. And I'm seeing 12, 14 pop-up spray heads in a zone with half-inch pipe that should be closer to 5 or 6, maybe max 8 heads. So you see that, right? Because it does, the intuition, the inclination is, yeah, it's not getting enough water at a head when they should be thinking maybe to reduce a head. So
That's
this I apply
interesting.
to the incorrect spacing and coverage.
Yeah. And do you think it's kind of like just, done at the start, in design, like just add a few more heads, or is it, you think it's done through observation that they're seeing something wrong over
Yeah,
time?
I think it is that they see something wrong, right? And what they start
And
to see,
assume.
and it happens slowly over time, right? It starts to get browner. It was fine in the spring. And so this is the other thing that happens. It was fine in the spring. It's June now. And now you start to see, right, all the problems come out because the
Okay.
water requirement is more. You could get by when it wasn't so hot, when ET was lower, but now you're starting to see the problems come out. And what they think is, well, it was fine a few months ago, so I had enough pressure. So something else is happening, or maybe they have a clogged head and they just didn't clean the head. Instead, they added a head.
Okay.
So these are the things that just happen.
Hmm.
The other thing, right, and I see this as the biggest issue as I go all around the nation, is the controllers, the what I call the traditional controller that you set, 4 times a week for 20 minutes or whatever you do. Um, it is a set it and forget it, and it's not adjusted. And we all learned many years ago when we were programming conventional clocks, and this didn't matter, biggest project to a residential home. You thought about how much water it would use in the month of July, highest ET month of the year. And then 4 times a year, you would adjust that down 25%, or maybe in the winter in certain parts of the country, you would just turn it off. But that was the
Yeah.
whole deal. And when you think about it, that's 4 adjustments in one year, or maybe 2 adjustments in one year. And people don't think it's that important, right? It's how much water am I going to save on these two adjustments? And if I'm over watering, well, my inclination is to think that my plants are going to look better anyway if they have more water. So this setting your timer and just forgetting about it tends to be a big issue. And
Mm.
it's funny, I see the opportunity to save water on properties the biggest between July and October because people do set that controller to July
The
temperatures, July
maximum.
ET,
Yeah.
and the days start getting shorter in July. And we know that plants don't really transpire water when it's dark. For the most part, they don't. And so we're pouring on water as the days are getting shorter and the plants aren't needing as much.
Hmm.
And so this becomes a very opportune time to save water with manual adjustments or smart controllers, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But this is a big issue, and it's an issue that doesn't get seen right away. It's an issue that keeps on happening over and over. And when you do finally see it, you start to see it in yellowing leaves because plants have been overwatered or big bills. And when your customer brings you that big bill, that is a bad call. This is you want to get ahead of that one.
Well, and I also see an opportunity. Maybe we're missing out on an upsell opportunity to monitor this for our clients instead of setting it and forgetting it. That you build in that cost to do that, and then you do it, and it's actually a differentiator for your business that
Yeah,
we take care of this.
absolutely. And if you think about it, most places the way you get a water bill is you get a water bill every other month. It's an HCF or CCF, which nobody can figure out anyway. 748 gallons. Why don't they just make it a price per gallon? But they code it just to make it a little more
Confusing.
confusing. And by the time you get that bill, the water that it is telling you overused 3 months ago.
Hmm.
And so it's hard to adjust to that. So what do you need, right? You need a controller that will use a flow sensor that you can actually monitor the water on a daily basis. And so if I'm a landscape maintenance contractor or a design build, I'm putting in a controller that has a flow sensor because that flow sensor is going to measure water use and provide a chart for me at the end of the month or on a daily basis. And I'm going to compare that use to last year's use. And I'm going to email this to my customer, hopefully with a couple of clicks of a mouse. It's not that hard with the good software that's out there today for smart controllers. And I'm going to give that property manager an opportunity to share that with property owners or their HOA. I build better value for my services as a contractor for doing that. And I just made the property manager a better property manager, which means they're going to give me more referral business in the future because they like what I'm doing.
Yes, and as prices for water continue to climb, it's only going to be more and more important, and to help those property managers, clients, whatever, um, know what's going on underground. I think that's the other thing. You don't see what's going on underground that well.
Yeah. Yep. So true. And that's what that flow sensor provides for you too. It was interesting a few years ago. Um, I was making a presentation to a HOA in Phoenix, Arizona that I really thought we had a little opportunity of winning. And when I showed the flow sensor and that it would sense high flows if there was a break
Mm,
and shut the system off, boy, I could see the interest of the board got really high. And then one of the board
yeah.
members said, "So if somebody hits our sprinklers with a baseball bat and it breaks, it'll shut the water off." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And they said, "That's the system we want." It was that
Really?
quick, right? And because they had huge issues with vandalism, People
Oh,
riding through their irrigation at night on their bikes with bats, and so they were wasting a ton of water, and their bills were outrageous as a result of that. So the fact that we would actually detect the high flow and then shut the irrigation
yes.
off was what they wanted to hear. This is what they needed.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, I mean, providing more value for, maybe a little bit more cost and maybe a little bit more attention to detail. So yeah, here you have where mistakes actually happen. And I like how you've broken it out between design and installation and maintenance, because I think irrigation, when I read things about irrigation, it does tend to be more about maintenance. And I feel like sometimes they get a bad rap because actually, it's design and installation is as much of a problem as maintenance. And we need to learn to work together better.
Yeah, again, and I think this is a result of this low bid environment that
Mm,
we sit in, and I think that's what's driving it. Because one thing's for sure, for the designers, they should certainly visit properties before they design the property, right? They should have a site survey, a site assessment. They should know the infiltration rate of water into the soil. But a lot of this on a lot of jobs, I'm sorry, just gets skipped because nobody's willing to pay for it. I mean, it's really expensive to do all that. And most customers say, just wing it. We'll be okay. We'll adjust. We'll be lucky, right? So I see that as a challenge. I know that designers would like to do that every chance they had. It's important, but
mm.
it doesn't always get done. So if I'm a customer, if I'm somebody thinking about putting in an irrigation system, I certainly want to give that irrigation designer opportunity to see the site and do the testing and do an assessment. I think that's really important. Um,
And again, I keep thinking, it's a shame because we don't like legislation to change our work, but in a lot of ways, the increase of price of water would would help that focus again. So just an observation.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's funny. It's not really funny. I teach a water conservation class out at the Water Conservation Garden in the East County of San Diego, where it's hot. The use of water even increases more. And out there, lots of people have maybe 2, 3 acre properties that they like to garden on, small 50-acre farms, things like that. But even the 2 and 3 acre people, homeowners there, are reporting, $1,500 water bills a month. And this is just going to take them out of, their hobby, right? This is going to make it so they can't do what they really love. So it is getting more attention as a result of this pricing. You'd think the attention would come before we get to $1,500, but
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that's a lot for
right,
water.
people in Southern California are paying more for water today than they are electricity, and this is a trend we're going to see continuing across the country. So, and then
So tell
yeah,
me.
the last thing I just want to mention here on where the mistakes happen is that oftentimes we as property owners, whether it's a Class A building or a residence, you inherit a landscape, you inherit what is there, and sometimes it's easier to look at the irrigation system and say, I can live with that, instead of saying, well, gee, I better redo this because remember the irrigation system went in. Right, they're designed to last 25, 30 years, and they are lasting that long. The landscape design, right, even the style of landscape has changed 2 or 3 times in that 30 years. So, and oftentimes the irrigation doesn't get changed out. So, I think you really need to evaluate that and decide. And the other thing for building owners and managers, the thing I really want to encourage, right, is that you start accruing some budget dollars for this change. Many properties do not have that accrual, and they just hope. I don't know what they think is going to happen in 25 years, but we're at that. We're at 25 years for a lot of properties, and even 30. And so, accruing for that change, for that ongoing maintenance and eventual change out, I think is really important.
Well, and I think that if you can also illustrate a savings of water quantities and efficiencies, I mean, have the equipment, have the irrigation systems improved enough to justify that investment, um, in your opinion, over the last 25, 30 years?
Certainly, right? And it's easy to do a cost justification. This is what you're spending today. This is what we anticipate what your savings will be and why, right? You're really going to have to show that why because they are trusting you to that the changes will develop that. So if you don't come through, you're probably going to lose a customer. You don't want that. So
Mhm.
these are the changes you need to make. This is why they're going to save you the water, and so this here's your return on investment that's going to actually pay for these changes.
Yeah, great.
The other thing I saw a lot when I was at Valley Crest is working with the branch managers. They'd say, Richard, this is great. We're going to save our customers money and water, but the landscapes are going to look terrible and we're going to get fired. And this was a common, right, intuition that more water, better looking landscape. And so, we have the EPA saying water use on landscapes across the country, we're overwatering by 50%. And for the most part, people think, well, the landscapes look okay. But it's really important to understand something. And I think it's a really important concept. And that is this when we want to water the same amount every time we water. The only thing that is changing is the frequency. Different
Okay.
day, different amount of water. And the reason why is your soil profile can only hold so much water. There's a fixed amount of water that you can put in that root zone. And if you keep on pouring water on, the water is just going past the root zone or it's just running off the top, but your plants aren't benefiting from it. And in fact, if you hold them in that situation too long, they're not getting any oxygen. So you're actually hurting them. So we want to fill the root zone with water. We want to measure when that water gets to about 50%, and we want to fill it back up. And think about this. If, all right, many years ago, I used to joke that my daughter invented the word hangry, right? So hungry, she was angry. Um, this is what your plants is happening with your plants, right? You don't want them to get hangry. Think about if somebody could feed you or nourish you every time you started to get slightly hungry. We would be so much more efficient. We would be so much better workers as a result of that. And that's what we want to do for our plants. We want to detect where the drawdown of water in that soil profile is starting to really make them work hard to get that water. And then we just want to fill it up. And then we want to draw it down. And the drawdown may take 2 days in the summer because it's hot, or you may have a rainstorm, or it might be a really overcast day, not much wind. It may be 4 days or 5 days, but we always want to do that. And if you can do that, if you can figure out how to do that, many smart controllers can do this. If you can do that, then you're going to have the most vigorous, beautiful landscape that you could possibly have.
Great. Thank you. I can see how, yeah, it is a mindset, really. But you can measure this. You can calculate it. So, hence the engineering behind it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we're inundated with this concept of water infrequently for a long amount of time. And sure, I buy into that, but let's define long amount of time. And that's going to probably require you to spend some time digging in the soil, seeing how far penetrated that soil is,
Mhm.
and how long it takes to do that in your particular environment. But and the investment in time of that is going to be great because you'll never be overwatering. And look, underwatering, giving your plants just a little bit every day or every other day, it doesn't pay off either
Mhm.
from root development and health.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing we all see, right? We all see this pressure problem, and mainly we see it in the too much pressure. And I've got a photo here of that. And you just see the misting. And this is another concept I try to remind people. Right, when you're irrigating with spray heads, they're probably the least efficient irrigation emission device that you can use. Mostly 50% of the water is being misted away or not landing where you want it to land. I used
Mhm.
to joke and say, look, if you went to Starbucks and you bought a venti coffee, 12 ounces, and they poured 24 ounces for you and 12 ounces ended up on the floor and you had to pay for that, you wouldn't be happy. And with 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 high pressure, that's what we're doing. And so I really encourage people to figure out when especially with high pressure and spray head sprinklers. Man, you can reduce that pressure at the head. You can reduce it at the valve. You can reduce it at the point of contact. This is a one of the easiest ways to save people money and water. And as we've said, this is how you really get valued by your customer.
Mm.
And then the last thing I want to talk about here with this, and these are simple fixes that people just because of time pressure, because they're having to get next job they're not necessarily doing. But let's be sure we walk the system when it's running, and we do this often. I've done bids before where people have asked us to do a wet check after every mowing, and I get why, right? Because when you mow, right, this is when a sprinkler can be clipped with a blade or kicked or things just get out of adjustment. So, uh, one challenge I see is most often people will say they'll do a monthly wet check, and oftentimes they never do a wet check. I think that you want to encourage your customers to do wet checks, pay for the wet checks because they're going to benefit from it, and it's your time. And certainly, we see contractors like Conserva Irrigation that have come into the marketplace in the U.S. and they charge a fee to do a monthly wet check, and then they get the repair business as a result of that wet check. And the maintenance contractor then is not doing the irrigation; they're just doing the plants. And so you're starting to see this change in the industry because it's certainly an opportunity, right, to do these wet checks and as often as possible and get your customers to pay for
And stay ahead of any problems. Yeah.
it.
I think that, that message is great because people want that service. So let's give it to them. Yeah. Oh, good. Smart controllers, hype
Yes.
versus reality. Great.
Yeah, so let's talk about smart controllers. I am a big proponent of smart controllers. Have been putting them in for 15 years now, easily. And I think that the benefits of smart controllers far outweigh any negatives. But let's just talk about what you need in a smart controller. One, I think it's really important that you have a smart controller that adjusts daily to live ET. Right, there's still a few controllers out there that adjust to historical ET. Well, just because it was this temperature and this amount of rainfall for the past few years on this date doesn't mean it's that way today. That value of having live data is really important, and you can get it now for no extra cost. So just be sure your controllers are using live local ET data. And then, as I mentioned, you want it to be able to generate reports are really key. You want it to sense flow, right, and know what a normal flow is and alert you if there is a low flow or high flow situation and shut the water off. And then we want to also think about what the water agencies are doing as far as rebates and opportunities to save your customers money with rebates and show them that you're going that extra step. But look, if you're a contractor and you're filling out rebate information, which look, I've done it, it's not necessarily easy. But if you're doing it, it's easier for you to do than your customer learning how to do it once. If you do it for your customer, it's a value add, and you can charge for it. Um, the things the smart controller won't fix, right? If the design of the system is bad or was set up incorrectly, it's not going to fix that, right? You're going to be able to make adjustments on it to fix slow infiltration rates, things like that. But there are some things, bad design it can't fix. Um, if your customers override the setting, and this has probably been, you said earlier, what are you surprised at in this industry? This is one of the things that is most disappointing to me is the amount of
Hmm.
customers I find um, that take their smart controller back to conventional settings, and it's a dramatically high number.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, they just can't figure it out, and so they say, "Hey, 4 times a week for 20 minutes and my landscape lives on." So this is the other thing that the controller can't fix, but you as a contractor or designer can, and it's part of that education. And you really
Education.
need to take your customers through the software and show them how to operate the software so that they, because they're going to put their hand in it no matter what.
Well, but or do you recommend you controlling it for them? But I guess that's it. Some clients won't choose to do that because it's an extra cost. So,
Correct. Correct. So again, that's an education
yeah.
opportunity. They just don't know the software. They don't know what it can do. They don't know why you can do it better. And this is why I think we're starting to see quite a few water managers pop up that are filling that gap. And um, I often say that the real competitor to the contractor isn't the other contractor, but it's these water management agencies that are coming in the marketplace that are going to take that irrigation revenue, which is typically 50% margins or a little higher. They're going to take it
Mhm.
away. And I always point to the energy industry. We don't see for instance, the janitorial people service managing energy. We have energy companies that come in and manage energy. So
Okay.
I think the industry needs to watch out for this because as the price goes up, that's going to be an opportunity for somebody.
Yeah. Well, and what if you have there's contractors out there that aren't as tech savvy and they think, oh, I'll just leave that alone. I'll not look at smart irrigation. I'll not learn to do that or educate my clients. I, but then, seeing it as an opportunity to upsell, they may want to start um, getting involved. Are there baby steps? Oh, getting started with smart irrigation. Okay, sorry. I wasn't looking at the slides. You beat me to it. Okay.
Yeah. So and you're right. You're totally right. And if you think about it, I'd say there's probably 10 smart controllers out there right now that are good smart controllers, very competitive with each other. And
Okay.
so, as a contractor, you think, how do I learn all 10? How do I teach my crew all 10? At Valley Crest, at that time, there's probably 50 smart controller manufacturers back in the 2010, 2012 range. Um, and we looked at the model of you can't teach everybody everything. And we wanted to settle on good, better, best options for our controllers and teach our crews maybe one or two controllers, not all 50, so that we could
Yeah.
then, knowing any job we went to, any person could manage that controller because they are more complicated than conventional controllers, but certainly not so complicated that people couldn't learn them in just a few hours.
Mhm.
So that was important, and I really recommend that people start with one account. Don't pitch it to everybody. Um, because you will learn from that one account. You will learn how the customer learns. You'll certainly have, I've got some customers that want to know everything, and others just want to know how much water they saved on a monthly
Yeah.
basis.
And they want you to
So,
handle everything. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
you get both, and both still have requirements. So you have to learn about that. And then look, choose an easy platform to learn, something that is very the user interface is very intuitive, right? Certainly, HydroPoint makes a great controller that's very intuitive, and then the Hunter HydroWise controller, same way. And then program it right. This is the other issue, is that you really have to know your landscape. You have to do that site assessment. You have to know what type of soil you have. You have to understand if there's full shade or full sun on a daily basis, if there's slopes, what plant material is in each zone. And gosh, we can talk about hydrozoning all day, but I've hardly ever seen a real hydrozone that wasn't an agricultural application, right? Everybody has many different water requirements for the plants in a zone. So you really have to understand that and program your smart controller to fit that. And then finally, to make the client a little comfortable with the app as well. And like I said, maybe it's the person who just wants to see a report. Well, you've got to show them that report, and you have to help them understand the report, right? So
Mhm.
if you can do that, though, let me tell you, your business is going to grow dramatically, and your customer satisfaction scores are going to also grow.
Well, and I keep thinking, this is where technology helps us build a rapport with clients. It's something less that you have to maybe, you know, the client has to do, but they're getting more out of it and they're learning more about the water they're using on site and how to use the controllers. Just a good example of technology and gives you a reason to upsell or show the value to your clients.
Yep. And look, especially today, if you're good at irrigation, right? The most common question I get from anybody I talk to as soon as they find out I'm in irrigation or water management is they want to know, do you know a good contractor? Can you refer me a contractor? This is this, and when I go to master gardener meetings, I'm a master gardener. I 3 to 5 times a meeting, I get asked that. So, if you are doing a good job and you're explaining to your customer, because sometimes we do have to explain to them we are doing a good job, and this is because they don't see what's going on in the landscape or the irrigation. So you explain to them why you're doing a good job, what it is that you're doing that's changing their water bill. Your referral business is going to go up incredibly as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great service that is needed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So here's the 5 steps, and I hope that everybody will take this, take it forward in their work and in their jobs, and be more successful as a result of that. So,
Gosh, this has
wanted
been great, Richard. Thank you so much. And you've put some resources on the screen as well. And this is how I met Richard is through the H2O Trends newsletter on Substack. Definitely recommend signing up for your newsletter. I think you've hit on some really holistic issues in the industry, and I like how you present a lot of facts. So again, data that can help drive people to learn more about water and what you can do as a landscape business owner, as an irrigation business owner, and to help others understand what we're all dealing with. So love that. Thanks for sharing that and your book site as well, where they can get their own copy. I uh, I think there's so much to learn here, and I really appreciate just this. I guess it's been an hour of quick learnings that landscape professionals can take away today, but there's a lot more to dive into. So we've talked about, we might have to do a series of these talks to get in more detail. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And yeah, it was great to make the connection in Substack. And the reason I joined that or started that, right, is I've been writing a blog since 2010. It started at Valley Crest, then moved to Jane, then moved to Husqvarna, and 30,000 subscribers. It was that I left behind and when I left the
Okay.
corporate world, right? And so I said,
Oh,
I'm not gonna let that happen again, right? Because I have to move and move. I'm not moving him again. So same type of format, same type of education I've been doing for the last 16 years. We'll continue through there. And I want to apologize. I got your website correct on this slide. I only thought it was in one place. I saw the error on the previous slide, but
oh, don't
just want to
worry.
remind everybody this is the correct website right here for you because you guys are doing great things. I want people to see what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Thanks. And thanks for being a part of our group, our education, and sharing what you're seeing in the industry today. Um, Love that you're involved in lots of auditing. You get to see what's really happening and see the trends, um, what we can learn from, and sharing it with everyone. And the more we share, the better we all get. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you again soon.
You bet. Thank you.